Then Tata Sim, Uncle Sim Tipola and Tari Saji Kosovo, the Sama, the and she had Savaret. Ah, Lu, don't you Delatine, young Kosovo having your head, Carnage. That took it, long, till it took it. Saji Kosovo Savantana, near your body. Tela Tinity, up and up, Lagan Yamsa Langati, Tamarpana Tata, Tele Tinity, Kova Ju, Genitally, Pena, you mobile less on the theatre and Kova 7 in your rate. Yamsa Lang, the Laro Chudula of Yamsa Langana, Devati, Yilu, Matiba, Rangulu, Raga Tule, Deva, Tele Tinity, Devati Latina, not talking God over your rate. Not all gods were going to simply Raja Telity. Savana Yetini, Devate, Tombalajo, Tombo, Savalajan, Rangati, Seven Hall, Pena, Flacquatini, Seven Nelo Tomate, Yaji Compello, Tap, Pena, Nelo Cheparti, Pena, Seven Hall Tap. That's the need, you know.
As I described earlier, within the mind itself, all of the attributes of the Buddha's three kayas are complete. Also, within the Vajra body, the seeds of the three kayas are also present. So we can see the channels as the Nirmanakaya, the wind energies as the Sambhogakaya, and the seed essence as Dharmakaya. Ordinary beings who do not understand this engage in ordinary activities, engage in ordinary sexual contact, and end up creating all of the causes of samsara, all the causes of suffering in samsara through ignorance of this. Yet when we engage in the practices of the 6 yogas of Naropa, for example, even though we may rely on the body of another person in the practice, we understand that the bliss that is experienced through sexual union is not based in the other person's body. The bliss itself is inherent in our own body-mind continuum. It is self-contained. When, through the power of our meditation on the nature of mind, conceptual thoughts cease, the clarity aspect of the mind manifests. When, through the practice of yoga, we give rise to bliss, that bliss is transformed into empty awareness, and that empty awareness is further transformed into the clarity aspect of mind. In this way, we abide in the natural state of the mind while engaged in yogic practices. And these practices are the supreme methods to cause the bliss, emptiness, and clarity aspects of the mind to increase and become stabilized. The text continues, cause the seed essence to slowly descend, stop, reverse, and pervade and abide at the crown. Right. And so, in general, the seed essence abides at the crown of the head. And through various yogic practices such as Tumo or the inner fire, we cause that seed essence to pervade and proliferate, to pervade the body and proliferate. And on the basis of this, we realize our own bodies endowed with skillful means. This refers to practicing alone without a consort and giving rise to great bliss from within one's own body-mind continuum. And so, penetrating the seed essence that abides at the crown, we cause it to slowly descend through the central channel. And as it does so, it reaches the various chakras or energy centers. And those chakras likewise are comprised of many channels which branch off into subsidiary channels further and further. And in this way, we cause the experiences of bliss and warmth to pervade the entire body. That experience of the basis of that bliss experience is the seed essence that is inseparable from the mind itself. And so when through meditation we have stabilized the non-dual union of bliss and emptiness, then we can intensify that realization through engaging yogic practices. Then, having caused the seed essence to descend through the central channel, we hold it and then cause it. We hold it, and as we hold it, we abide in awareness of the union of bliss and emptiness. And then again, we reverse the flow of the seed essence, drawing it back up through the central channel and causing it to pervade the entire body by means of the various chakras. And in this way, there are innumerable modes of training in the system of the 6 yogas. And by engaging these yogas, it is possible to attain the body of rainbow light. It is possible to attain the paradise of the Dakinis. On the basis of relying on these kinds of instructions, and by practicing them, many great beings of the past have had just such attainments.
틀리니까 샘다 틀리니까 오죽바네 롱당 샘 틀리 좀 적던데 되잖아. 되게 빡가대로 되고 라왕 톱는 빼놓고 아래 되게 라왕 톱아 되게 용거리 되게 라왕 톱잖아. 되게 인도 대신도 샘비가 동물에 빼라 아 되게 되라 원래 되게 인도 대신 되게 양 빼는데 원래 답이요래 되라 소마한테 되니래.
So as we engage in the training of the 6 yogas, but specifically we're talking about Tumo here, we engage in the practice relying exclusively on our own bodies, which are endowed with skillful means. And through engaging the yogic practices in this way, we merge mind and wind energies into a single unit. And this is also accomplished through the Vajradhara recitation of the syllables Om Ahom. As we engage further in the yogic training, not only do mind and wind energies become one and the same, but they also merge with the seed essence, So mind, seed essence, and wind energies all merge to one. Then, on the basis of this, real independence is attained. We recognize the completeness of the bliss that is inherent in our own body-mind continuum. Having stabilized this, then and only then is it acceptable to rely on the body of a partner to further cultivate the yogic training. So these are the methods then whereby we give rise to great bliss, which intensifies our realization of the ultimate natural state.
Tila 동무보다다 tila 힘이 내 동시 차서 또 따와 되는 요래 내용 강라야 랑게 대시가 저빠가 지종네 강롱제다양 제가 토모를 차오면 척바대 빼려고 내용 강나에 대 차오고 가면 제를 빼지세서는 이 척바대 매완도고 요래 척바대면 신바요 말에 빼라 올래 신바면 들이 셉도 따로 받을 거 봐도 매장 보생도 받다고 네 봐요 말에 디미마들이 다 듣고 그래야 돼 빼라 내용 강해나요.
The text continues, when there is no fixation to that, the wisdom of empty bliss arises, and like the waxing moon, one attains longevity without graying, that is, graying at the temples. So, if we wish to attain or achieve the ultimate purpose, we really have to become skilled at liberating the attachment that arises in our mind stream. If we can accomplish this, then however many objects of sense pleasure we enjoy, we will, we will not fall under the power of fixation. If we give rise to attachment to objects of sense pleasure, in the moment of the arising of the attachment, we will recognize it with awareness. Thus it will be liberated. If we're free from attachment, then of course we'll be free from fixation as well. And then, in this context, it doesn't matter how many negative emotions arise, because the power of our mindful awareness has become such that no matter how gross the negative emotion is, it will be immediately consumed by the power of wisdom. This is like a fire that has grown so intense that no matter what fuel we feed to it, it will be burned away instantaneously. So in this way, we should seek to cultivate freedom from fixation in the practice.
다 남절 바타 타발 바게 제발 남리 요미게 제발 드니지 거래 배나 대배 용딩 탐제 수장 롱주고요래 이래 타발 바지 봐 가이지거든 뉴모바 라뉴 바 뉴모바 라뉴 바텔라 차과요래 차과요 신바를 신바된 책네 빼나 다다 몇 가지 타마되고 오요래 타반나 볼라서 봐 제가 시보도 제기는 나도 쏘다 다도를 되고 대테리오로 와 쏘다 저 시제도 딱 잡아시면 타만 빨았더니 이게 뉴무빈 쳤나 저 대답을 해야 돼.
Here it's important to make a distinction between yogis, yoginis, and ordinary beings. It's important to distinguish between those who are actually practicing and those who are not. Of course, everybody enjoys objects of sense pleasure, but ordinary beings experience the the uncontrolled arising of negative emotions. And so, enjoying objects of sense pleasure, they give rise to attachment, and on the basis of that, they give rise to fixation, and on the basis of that, their minds are bound. For example, when someone is addicted to tobacco or other types of drugs, then they are so bound by the addiction that even if it costs them their lives, still they will continue consuming this substance. This is the great fault of ordinary beings whose minds are bound by uncontrolled negative emotions.
Tela tata tanyami chibat rana judo samang tongore. Oh, rana kanga shimpa chedo. Kanga shimpa chewa de lu tong si. Tapen lu tong di la lo pa tongore. Lu tong a. Lo tong lo ke ngam go si a. De lo tong a. Le lo ke. Lo tong de lu tong di. Ah.
So we should investigate in our own minds. Those of us who wish to practice should investigate in our own minds. What is it that I'm fixated on? And once we've identified that, we need to abandon it. And Rinpoche has said, we're abandoning it with the mind. And so I asked him, is it necessary for us to actually abandon the object of fixation? And he said, no, we have to abandon it with the mind.
Oh, shimbo doksan ju di trupane dema mare, ona. Kang mare dena, kang la komna, te nawa te shadore mato no chepe, mechikle shimbi je tsamane shimbo mare. Shem shiba kiega toa de chipore tine chu, shimbo doksan, di kami semge, raku jinshi te, ole, tibe shiraku tina, shimbo doksan ju lo se yo mare. Te mero kami te sushi, oh, shimbo doksan ju te dzumare esa, nam to ba go se so na oh ta sana cho te yo na cho me na cho ta ti shin ba me ba ji mi long ju.
So for example, if you're eating a delicious piece of fruit, or no, if there's this delicious piece of fruit and you know you like this kind of fruit, then as you eat it you give rise to the thought, oh, this is extremely delicious. And that thought that the fruit is delicious itself is false. It's delicious because you're habituated to it. Not everybody is of the same opinion about that fruit. So if on the basis of mindful awareness, as you consume the fruit, you recognize the arising of attachment. You see the arising of the thought, this is delicious. Then you can liberate that thought through mindful awareness. Then, if you continue to eat the fruit or not, it's fine. If you have it or if you don't have it, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that you, through mindful awareness, remain in a state free from fixation. And then if you do eat the fruit, you can enjoy it in a state without fixation.
Yeah. Kashige teta trenshige chok me na. Yeah. Then ma shemju saje di pe di ma kare no ko so to. Oh, ngamo yene deke. Nasa so to. Kyore sam saja. Tari shenpa de zawa, shenpa de cheka ta mewa cha ro. Oh, kyuni so to sadyo mewa, yoba sadyo mewa cha ngore pe na ole. Teni sanglo ta kanga shenpa cha sela cha da, kula cha da, nola cha da. Ranga paji tela so nyedwi cha na kang chapa shenpa cha ja sanglo je ta na. Ramna tawa go ni, ole ti shenpa de, ole no. 때문에 내려갔더니요. 다른 방법이 있으나 참만 파마바지 받지 자요 말이지. 근데 다이나 당이나 당 상들 심바 매와 차대.
So for those for whom mindful awareness is not strong, if we look at the things to which we're attached and fixated, we can see their negative attributes as well. We can see, oh, well, although I like sweet food, it does harm to my body. And when we think in this way, our fixation can be reduced by half, just by seeing the negativity inherent in the object. And the more we focus on this, we'll eventually give rise to a desire to just completely abandon that food. And so it is with food or wealth or clothing or our children. We should really investigate in our own minds, what is it that I'm fixated on? The best type of practice will be to completely reverse that fixation through abiding in the ultimate view. In the absence of that practice, then at the very least, we should, through like causal Mahayana methods, seek to recognize, for example, all sentient beings as our kind parents. And by contemplating this, we begin to equalize our feeling towards enemies and those who are near and dear. And having equalized our attachment and aversion in this way, then we can begin to reduce our fixation.
There's 사실 좀지적이 별로다다. 내투게 특발에 다 보고 탐질라 빼나. 나. 저는 니적은 좋아래. 산인 좋아하는 진 좋고요 말이 빼나. 나와요 말이지. 네 말이 공식이니 제일 호모를 때는 맞아. 이 좋은 말과. 야. 야고 인다 버테나 콜로. 야고 콜로 저 자식이로 나와요. 진짜 기타 싫은 가다라. 지금 콜로 저 자식 정도 적어도 지금 산이 갈아서야 짐을 줘 봐대 가래. 생부 형화된 신발 용매. 그래. 디 설레지.
So the Buddha, the transcendent conqueror, taught the vehicle, or taught the teachings of the vehicles of the hearers and solitary realizers for the benefit of beginners on the path. And in accord with this vehicle, the renunciates could not gather food provisions. They had to beg for food one day after the next, and could only keep what they would eat for that day. On the other hand, we see a great Buddhist king like Indrabhuti, who enjoyed all of the wealth of a Chakravartin king. And some people might say, well, there's a contradiction then between these two modes of behavior. But actually there is no contradiction. The difference here lies in whether or not the mind is bound by these, by connection with these objects of sense desire. The various teachings are given to meet the needs of beings according to their capacities.
착바다 신바요 미래 거를 보지다거나 마차 중지 마을바 배서 빼말 빼차야래 빼맞은 나바는 지는 빼면은 나만은 나바 자만이 요 말이 대답을 무슨 남겨 받탐제 생모냐 미제니 탐제 콜은데는 내는 콜하게 되지 론주 내용아 제라서 받탐제라 닝보메와데 트바인바 신의 신바메나 되는 콜은 되는 semden 콜발을 도르제요 디 탑제 쪽으로 무슨 코만을 로자 방전 매나야 원래 근데 세부들이라고 신밤에 받더니들 동네 양이 양설랑 내가 통기를 해야지.
So for those of us abiding in cyclic existence, it is attachment and fixation principally that obscure our minds. However, it is possible to abide in cyclic existence while being free of this obscuring influence of attachment and fixation. For example, a beautiful lotus flower arises out of a muddy swamp. But when the lotus blossoms, its blossom, its leaves are completely untainted by that mud. And so it is that a yogi or yogini can physically remain in cyclic existence and enjoy all of the bliss, happiness, wealth, and objects of sense desire in samsara without their minds becoming tainted by it. They see that all of these enjoyable phenomena are the nature of emptiness. They are without essence, and thus there is no fixation or bondage in their minds. So even though they enjoy these objects of sense pleasures, they remain unbound. If we can practice like this, without a doubt, the fruition will be achieved. So Rinpoche is saying, if we can practice in this way, actually it's not so difficult. Whatever we have fixation towards, no, let me back up. Whatever activities we're engaged in, when we recognize the arising of attachment and fixation, we remember it as a fault. And with this mindful recognition, we should just sit for a few moments in mindful awareness. And within that, the attachment itself will be liberated. And the more often we do this, all of our fixation and attachment will become less and less. So I would urge you not to forget this introduction to the nature of mind, which is the method whereby we can liberate attachment. So if we can practice without fixation, we really should engage the method path of training in the channels and wind energies and so forth. In this regard, the text says, when one practices in this way, one attains longevity without graying hair. One becomes radiant with power like that of a lion. Furthermore, the text reads, the common attainments will be swiftly achieved. This refers to ordinary siddhis or miraculous powers. So when we know all phenomena to be the nature of emptiness and to be free of inherent establishment, then, like Milarepa, we can demonstrate miraculous powers.
도망 좀 욕적 녀를 톱 초라 요스 도망 좀 되더니 초라 요지는들이 비 동담배 대바데 통네 아네들이 아그 사자진배 동통나 되니 니스도 봤다 탐시 니메게 시콩도 주는들이 근데 니메 나이 니메 올레 근데 예미가 따와대 도는들이 올레더니 산지살아 다른 몸 안에 초라 요스 되니 사자진배 내지도 많은 로아까지 힘은 내발 좋은 인지 제보고 거리 텔레비 송을 내나 어디 공을 모나도 인지도 없고 되니 로아 강게 때 바다를 받치나 대담시 되니 공도다 잘 욕전들이 거 소생들 특별해.
So the text reads, the common attainments will be swiftly achieved, leading to the supreme accomplishment. And so ultimately we will recognize the ultimate truth. This will be the complete transformation of dualistic view into non-dual wisdom. On the basis of this, we will stabilize the view of samsara and nirvana as inseparable. And from here, the attainment of fully enlightened Buddhahood is close at hand. The text continues, may fortunate wayfaring beings take to heart this essential advice on Mahamudra. Thus, Lord Tilopa, through the power of his great compassion and aspirations, gave this instruction to Naropa. But the instruction is really meant for whomever has faith. If one gives rise to sincere faith, then without a doubt, the blessings of the lineage will enter and pervade one's mind.
semtinam sangye ni so sangye jote rang yu la yu dang yu yin ba le yu mi ba le te rang rang yi shi je ba o semte sangye yin sa ta je de de nam mo shi sam ji ma to je be sangye yin ne ta ju sam ni ma ba mo so.
The seed of enlightenment abides in the minds of all beings, whether we have recognized it or not. We need to give rise to belief in that. In the mind streams of all beings, the Buddha nature is present. And we need to have faith in that without conceptually investigating it, because it won't be seen through investigation anyway. In this way, then, we should give rise to faith in the existence of Buddha nature.
Oh 그 자동 치 오레 오마네 베메 호레 오마네 베메 호레 다이나 로마답지 안 갔다는 좋아지 거저 제요나 지 제지 존이 나게 롱로졌다 저거나 롱가 로 저면은 기본으로 보지 송아 저래지
So there were questions and answers yesterday. There are more questions to be responded to today. I've also been requested to give the oral transmission of the text, and if there is time remaining, I will do so. If there is not time remaining after the question and answers, then please do request this transmission from Khenpo Rinpoche. The first question is the Om Ahong you taught us yesterday to be used during the Ngundro, during the 100 recitations of the Mala? And so, if you recall in the Drigun Kagyu preliminary practices text, there's a section where you're reciting 108 times the Om Ahong syllables. And Rinpoche says there's actually, these two are not the same thing, because at this time during the preliminary practices you're reciting the syllables rather quickly. And the Om Ahong recitation in conjunction with the Vajra recitation that I gave yesterday is to be done when you're in a more kind of restful and expansive mode. And it's done much more slowly. It's good to do it at night before you fall asleep. So these two are not the same. They're slightly different. Again, if we think we've covered your question and we have not, then please don't hesitate to shout out, and we can clarify further from there.
산지에 밤이게 샘제 사자치 모래 서이 고속로 산지에 담이라 망보요나 뉴섬제 산지에 샘제 사자치 모래 찍대.
The question is, would you tell us how Buddha Amitabha's Devachan practice relates to Mahamudra practice? And basically, Buddha Amitabha's mind is Mahamudra. Although the Buddhas appear in various forms, different colors, shapes, and so forth, ornaments, implements, and so on, the Buddhas of the three times all have the same mind, and that mind itself is Mahamudra.
same good Trishi Tetan Madana, you may show the law. Trishi the order, make carriers over the carriage, whether the sinking, see the song, young lady, Leka and Pit, Zama, Mayamba, Yomamiba, Jejime by a volume. Trishi never got Leka and Jet or a lot of. Trishi only Leka, carriage in and Samaji, Yamini, Dimata,
The next question is, actually I haven't fully understood this question, but we'll try. I don't understand how the mind can abide in the non-dual state while the body and speech go to the store. Now this part I understood. And the actual question here is, isn't the body and speech at the store a non-dual awareness? That part I didn't quite get. But what I did ask Rinpoche was, how is it that body and speech can be engaged in activities while mind abides in non-dual awareness? And his response was this. If we are not separated from mindfulness, if we're continually looking at the mind with the mind, then non-dual wisdom will be recognized, regardless of what our outer activities might be. Furthermore, when we engage in activities in an undistracted state of mind, we don't forget what we're doing. All of our work is accomplished properly. And it becomes the path of practice. On the other hand, when mindful awareness is lost, then we make mistakes in our work, we forget what we're supposed to be doing, and so forth. We don't accomplish our work properly. And so in this way, maintaining non-distracted mindful awareness while we engage in activities, we participate in conduct that is like an illusion. Would you mind elaborating more on collective karma and how our mind has involvement therein? Rinpoche has said that this comes about through the power of dualistic view that all beings have. And so we collectively have the same concept, such as this country is America, and we all agree on that, and there's no disputing that fact among us. And so this is an example of how our collective thought conditions the environment around us. Does that address your question? Okay.
대점 중길래 우리 거치나 그 누서 내를 이제 말을 눈이지 거라 누사 눈이제 누면서 눈이제 대점 중길래
Furthermore, actually, there was something that wasn't quite right in my response. This example of thinking that this is an America, of us having this collective thought, is not exactly right on. For a better example is this. If we fall asleep and we dream, in our dream there appears our own body and then all of the external phenomena around us. And that phenomena appears through the conditioned habit of being in this world and perceiving the phenomena around us in our waking state. So all sentient beings have that kind of conditioned propensity to perceive the world around them in a certain way. And on the basis of that, we give rise to a collective view or attitude towards phenomena as existing in a real, inherent way. And so that, I think, is a little bit better explanation of how this whole collective karma influences our perception with and perception of and involvement with the environment. This question is, how are Tigle and mind, or how are seed essence and mind related? And Rinpoche says, well, the seed essence goes wherever the mind goes. There are basically 5 types of seed essence, and it would require a great deal of time to elaborate on all of them. In any case, these various seed essences abide in the body, and they are the basis of giving rise to physical bliss, and also the basis for all of the love and affection we feel emotionally. So really, when we're speaking of loving kindness and compassion on the one side and seed essence on the other, we're talking about the same thing. It's just that the seed essence has a physical, material basis, and loving kindness and compassion have a basis in the mind itself. Why is there harm in losing seed essence during sex? There are many reasons for the harm that is caused by this loss of seed. The first is one's physical powers diminish, and the mind becomes unclear. The life force diminishes, and so, yeah, there are many reasons to avoid this loss. What is the importance of Guru Yoga is the first question. Yeah. If we have a mind of love that is free from doubt and hesitation, then all of the qualities of the Guru's mind will be absorbed into our mind stream. Our mind and the Guru's mind will mix and merge. But if we have the obstacles of doubt and jealousy, that merging will not be possible.
Lama nguniye sei lama de tata gewishi nire nang lama de saja chimbo lama de semte lama chukor kowari chi nimi muguposon so kata chuso labiore kwangkame lama de semte lama ri maso chebe zoko lama ndo de ne mema boyo na chile or dewa yo marwa lama de semte saja chibe tongo to yo na teni 제가 되니 변디 라마 사자치 목 동원에도 사자치 모래
라마 추고 거워지
이미 먹어서서 라마 추걸 하고서 랑게 셈이 각각 말에 라마 셈이 쭉 바래
The second part of that question was, how does Guru Yoga relate to Mahamudra? The Guru, in his or her physical form, is known as the outer Lama. On the inner level, the Guru is Mahamudra. And so, when we recognize the Dharma, when we recognize the Guru as Dharmakaya, we have perfected non-dual devotion. This was mentioned the other night during the empowerment. And so the ultimate nature of the Guru is the nature of mind itself. When we give rise to non-dual devotion, we know experientially the sameness of our mind and the Guru's mind. We have direct experience of the inseparability of the two. Is there a danger in doing the practices involving the channels, winds, and drops? If so, how can one recognize the manner in which they are doing the practice can cause harm? Now, I didn't ask the second half of the second question. However, I believe Rinpoche's response will go to that as well. If your mind has become separated from loving kindness and compassion, there's danger to doing the yogas involving the channels, winds, and drops. But then again, there's danger to doing any practice when your mind has become separated from love and compassion. Did that clarify it? Could Rinpoche comment on the emotion of fear and its relation to practice? When fear arises, we need to recall the Guru. Recalling the Guru is the same as giving rise to mindful awareness. In the context of the view of Mahamudra, all thoughts are the same, and so the way we respond to fear is no different than the way we respond to all of the other thoughts and emotional arisings. We cultivate mindful awareness, and on the basis of that, the arising is dissipated. You should also understand that the very cause, the root cause of fear, is self-clinging.
Tell something you do got it.
말해 본 거죠. 하게 가려냐 그런 거예요.
Teacups up in a lama tree, tower tree, or it. You something you go. Somewhat tower tree, no?
If one is ill and the consciousness is blurred as a part of the illness, how can one practice? You should recall the Guru, and especially call to mind the teachings on the view. Likewise, you should give rise to a mind of loving kindness and compassion for others. Did that address your question? Okay.
Senta namka ni se ne. Did you got it? Now, Jonathan, and sent the pain. Not how you book up. You look the
Likewise, we should merge our mind with space. This will be of benefit when we are experiencing physical or mental illness. We speak about the mixing of awareness with the sphere of space. And so if we practice in this way, it will be of benefit.
God, you my people, leg number of us, Sajik, Saga Kubari. There's some Tawa, Koto, Dongin, Yon Quinty, Ranker, Dadin, could you lay this style on here? Mount politician, something you go, pinching you on him you go. Pass, okay, Chelsea.
Even if our political situation is an illusion, if we feel that innocent people are being harmed, do we have a responsibility to try to make political changes? No. It's of no benefit for us to try to intervene and stop this activity from taking place. These sentient beings, these innocent sentient beings, still are experiencing suffering as the result of the negative karma they've accumulated through the habits of self-clinging. From our side, the greatest benefit that we can provide is to continually give rise to loving kindness and compassion for them. Did that clarify your question? This question says, please explain how the three subtle bodies correspond to the inner channels, wind energies, and subtle seed. When you refer to three subtle bodies, are you talking about Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya? Okay.
Semdala Sanji Kosung, Yundi, Yore, Lundela, the Savanta, Yore, Savanta, Tariti Vati, Talon Telesom. Tatukurva, long till the Longkurva, Tilly Chukurva, Savanta, sort of it. Seven? You go seven, you go Chijura. Seven, that you think I am your mother. I'm good, Nina. Betu, Chen, you go Chijura.
Yeah. The mind itself is where the qualities of the three kayas of the Buddhas are manifest. The body merely contains the seeds of those three kayas. So we draw parallels between the subtle channels and the Nirmanakaya, or the wind energies and the Sambhogakaya, or the seed essence and the Dharmakaya. But right now, they are merely seeds. They haven't taken root, they haven't sprouted or given rise to their manifestation as fruit and leaves and flowers and so forth. It is only if we make effort that we can cause the seeds of the three kayas that abide in the body to become manifest.
Gom majata kasa number to patela. Zabata shimbayo with the lesa. Gom jabakan namto the chukur tordo. Namto horn no money in general. Namto chukur in general. Then May una sing the manager or May minute sing top account sing sing. 냠들은 저바서는 남도 오는 견로래. 저바면 샘데 고 야제데 뉴버지들이 야제 야가로마 제용 샘데 야제로 따래 제가 냠들은 저바 마용다 내가 요 말해. 냠들은 저바 쪽들이 남도 오는 견로래.
What is the difference between thoughts and realizations that come up in meditation? When I translated this to Rinpoche, I didn't use the term realization. Rather, I referred to meditative experiences because realizations have the sense of like a stabilized, a realization that has become stable as the result of meditation, and I don't think that's what you're referring to. Anyway, Rinpoche's response is this. When we are not meditating, we give rise to thoughts, and we are fixated on those thoughts, and then we create karma. When we are meditating, we give rise to thoughts, and those thoughts are liberated into the Dharmakaya. Thus, they are recognized as empty. So, for example, if we have a fire and we give it fuel, the wood is transformed into the fire. It is consumed by the fire. If we do not have the fire, that is to say, the fire of awareness, then if we place wood there, that is, if we give rise to a conceptual thought, it just remains wood. It just remains a conceptual thought. It is not consumed or transformed. If we fixate on meditative experiences, then we give rise to more and more concepts about it, and then we are drawn away from the actual meditation. If we do not fixate on the experiences and we simply leave them alone, they will naturally increase. If there's no fixation in the mind, then there is no harm that comes about through various experiences or thoughts. Did that address your question? It's the translator's opinion that a question and an answer don't get any better than this. What is the most effective object of meditation? The most effective object of meditation is the inseparability of mindful awareness and the Guru. If we cannot sustain mindful awareness, then we should recall the Guru. And through the power of that recollection, it will be transformed into mindful awareness. Okay, the next question. What is the difference between the soul and the mind? If you can define what a soul is for me, I can translate the question for Rinpoche. I'm not joking. I really don't know. If you feel more comfortable to put it in writing, that's also fine. I'll set this one aside for the moment.
사제 탐지게 원래 투규지 남발 메도베 시에데나 유몽 탐지 실은 저데레 근데 대 탐지게 몰람다 hin지게 똑대 되니 살랍텔 주네 되니 마셔 주래 쇼나 되니 랑게 샘주던 데와 찬 랑게 주래 시랍 실은도 유몽 용럽도 제 탐지를 해야지 Rinpoche truku tabar ye.
Please explain the purpose and prescription for the pills that were given to us at the empowerment. The mind of all of the Buddhas is non-conceptual wisdom. When we formulate these pills, we consecrate them with this same meditation of non-conceptual wisdom. Likewise, they are blessed by the power of compassion and prayers of aspiration to accomplish the benefit of beings. Thus, when one consumes these pills, it becomes a cause for transcendent awareness to increase and negative emotions to become fewer and fewer. These pills can also be said to be nirmanakaya, or enlightened emanations. The way they are to be taken, Rinpoche said the other night, was to put them under the tongue at night just before falling asleep, while engaging in the mental recitation of the syllables Om Ahom and practicing the Vajra recitation according to the instructions yesterday.
Re, tela mikpa mepe hingi de, gom majabga hngana sam hingi de, gom tani gom jawdi mugo tila, toni kami hingi choba hilayo ma he. Kisul tani hingi dangzi, lego tapa napa tani, tapa shukshir tani, hingi dangzi lego ma he. Tata rang yo ma he, mena nupa yo ma he. Tata hingi yangda gom de na, hingi ngani tani toni to onwa, toni to onwa jisol, toni rangi tani hingi chade, nupa yo ma he. Te magom ni taare, gom ma tabe chiyone, gom kore, yin o magom ni. Yeshi yo ma he.
All right. At times I experience non-conceptual perception, but without a sense of compassion or self-aware wisdom. How do I cultivate the union of the three, non-conceptual self-aware wisdom suffused with compassion? So, if we experience non-conceptuality without this sense of compassion or great wisdom, this is a sign of not yet having habituated the natural state of the mind. If we continue to practice in this way, and I should mention here that the term gom in Tibetan refers to both meditation and habituation, or becoming accustomed to. So if we continue to meditate on the nature of mind, the wisdom will become more and more powerful. And then it is, the other method that we need to cultivate is again and again to give rise to loving kindness and compassion. And then on the basis of that, emptiness will be directly realized. When we look directly at the empty nature, that will be suffused with and endowed with love and compassion. It will arise spontaneously and naturally of its own accord. If it does not in the beginning, it's just due to not yet having habituated the practice. Then, when we are meditating on the nature of mind, and when that's become a little bit stabilized for us, there will be times when we're not actually feeling strong compassion. And there's also no harm in that. In that instance, we're simply not feeling a dualistic kind of compassion because we're abiding in non-dual wisdom. So there's no sense of self having compassion for another who's experiencing suffering.
Sla gombana namto madaba namto parchamme ba jogandeli de slai kuji chalo sokolla so ba gomna namto madaba chama tapare jondoji jongtarti namto tapare jorchana namto chamjole lawore tini jongtar ma ko kami tini toni gon tini saja chibunami ma da tini gonore.
While engaging in various secret mantra accumulations of merit, Vajrasattva, for example, what is the proper way of engaging this recognition of the nature of mind? When we engage in deity yoga, in the beginning the purpose is to transform impure concepts into pure perception. And so for this reason we focus on the visualization of the deity's form, the ornaments and the implements and so forth. And when that becomes stabilized, then we are, we are able to transform impure perception into pure perception. And then within that, we recite the mantra. And as we engage the mantra recitation, we should do so abiding in the view of the ultimate nature of mind, that is Mahamudra.
Nyangwa mara di kam tomo gom na pena yongdo lo kore di wala me gom de na pena rangi yongdo lo kore di me wan lo kore nyangwa mara.
The next question, do women's seed essences degenerate through menstruation? No, they do not degenerate, but it's a good idea to practice tumo, focusing on the flame at the navel chakra, and through the power of this practice, the blood that is lost will become less and less, and eventually it is possible for it to cease completely. I guess that addresses the second question as well. What practice can women do to prevent our seed essence from being lost in this regard? Yeah.
Sharawan namto jela dako majab ya na pena shedang to padar meju shedang de jiu na shedang de nusin so mi so na tentu mete thong shedang la ngam mare pena mador na mete thoma ta tri shedang de tel che de shedang re jiu re thong shedang re jiu yo le.
Please explain the signs that show a thought has been liberated on arising. When a thought arises, if we don't hold on to it, we don't keep it, but we just leave it alone, then it will be liberated. For example, if we give rise to anger and we recognize that anger, if it has been liberated, then there will be no trace of it left. If I'm angry at someone and then I liberate the thought, the next time I see that person, there will be no trace of anger in my mind. On the other hand, if I have not liberated it, then each time I see that person, I'll remember the anger, and the anger will increase. This is a question that regards the question in regard to this translation of the Ganga. I guess somewhere in the text it says, if you're without acceptance and rejection of external appearances, all that appears and exists will be liberated as mudra. And what is mudra? I don't understand this translation. I didn't see that anywhere in the original Tibetan. So I guess maybe let's hold off on this for a moment, and I'll search through the Tibetan text and see if maybe I can find the that particular verse in its original.
사자들은 배라 락베 사자체는 데라 사자체 거고 요래 드니 다다랑게디 르마텐지 데라 사자체 거고 요래 돈이 야
This translation also states, if you rely upon Karma Mudra, the wisdom of bliss and emptiness will arise. What is Karma Mudra? Karma Mudra and the term mudra are actually the same thing. Mudra is just a symbol or a gesture. And so, for example, and these are both Sanskrit terms. And so, for example, when we're engaging in a sadhana practice and we make offerings to the deity, there will be various gestures that we make with our hands. Those gestures are mudra. But then in the context of Karma Mudra, we're talking about the awareness consort that we rely upon to engage in the higher yogic practices. This Karma Mudra is the seal of emptiness. And so let's just hold off on the first of your questions, and at the end then I'll go back and try to locate it in the original text.
This concludes CD number 9 of Ganges Mahamudra Practice Instruction with His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche.
shene shibadan dhamata mangbo yore, shene rik mangbo yore, tata nga tsoga shene de bena, nyumo batangi shene, semra awabda de bati nyung shene de, yidaga chulo lokson dhamata lang shene naba naso gong yore, tegela kosama teri mene, sakshi jokshin ga nana shene ga tsik yungu yore.
I have read that regarding practice in Mahamudra, shamatha cultivation is emphasized more than in Dzogchen. If this is the case, how does one meditate according to the Dzogchen tradition? There are many different types of shamatha or calm abiding meditation. But in the context of what we're practicing here, calm abiding is when all negative emotions have become pacified. So although there are countless other ways to engage shamatha practice, this is the basis that we cultivate. The pacification of negative emotions is the basis that we cultivate when we're engaged in the practice of Mahamudra or in Dzogchen. And in fact, if you look into the Dzogchen texts, you will also find plenty written about shamatha modes of meditation practice.
죽어도는 남도 오를 때는 남도에 동바래 남도 동반이 있으면 죽었어와 동반이라고 고요래 그래 남가다라 너무 받아 남도 탑에 올 때는 동로 걸 때 강대지 가는 때가 내서다 진짜로 죽어야 돼 남도 동반이라고 남도 죽어야 봐 맛있어 아
What is the method for realizing Dharmakaya? The method is to look at the very face of arising thoughts. When we do this, the empty nature of the thought is recognized, and thus we see the expanse of the mind like the expanse of the sky. If we look at the source of the thought, if we look at where the thought goes to after it dissipates, then we will find nothing but empty mind. So in this way, we need to recognize thoughts as Dharmakaya.
Re, Ninja Gram, Jintia Pena, McKagan Ninja, Mimic Ninja, Nore, McKagan Ninja, what you let up about Ninja simply donated, they donate something, McKagan Ninja. They young down the one from Tana, Ninja Kiwati, Ninja Hogram, Jinja Tomani Repena, Ninja Kwangram, using upon Mother Pade. They nothing water, 3-7 little thoughts on the Ninja. 초라다고데 니마 돈이 hingi 양정양도 돈이 hingi 손들되는 거서나 고군문나 삼는게 고고로와 요무와에 삼는게 고고로와 고소라더니 니지게 라우로데 생라기 내용에 돈이라는 hingi라는 돈이 hingi 뭐 돈만이 이름이 가까이 오면 세고 말해.
Okay. We speak of merging the wisdom that realizes emptiness with compassion, and that is or becomes enlightenment. However, merging implies effort. And so the question is just basically, how do these concepts become reconciled? The nature of, compassion manifests in two different ways. Objectified compassion and unobjectified compassion. So for example, when we look at sentient beings who are experiencing suffering, we give rise to compassion for them. That is a dualistic kind of objectified compassion. Yet, when we are meditating on the ultimate nature, from within that, non-objectified compassion is spontaneously arisen. It is naturally and effortlessly experienced. The nature of emptiness is compassion. The nature of compassion is emptiness. And so when the natural state of the mind is realized, there is no need to fashion. There is no need to give rise to any kind of objectified compassion. Then in this context, when we sit down to engage in practice, whether we are saying the opening prayers of refuge and bodhicitta, whether we are engaged in the actual practice, or whether we are doing the dedication of merit at the end, still all of these are endowed with the non-dual union of emptiness and compassion. Right, and so we should understand that emptiness and compassion are not two, they are inseparable. They spontaneously arise together. Does this also address your second question? Is there a Mahamudra practice that merges wisdom and compassion? Okay. Okay, this one is quite lengthy, and I'm just going to have to kind of scan through it and extract the essence.
Te sarve nyamzi, yinji semchi jute, yabo, yinji semchi nero, halam se shayo te Sarinyam, the Tilang Shini Mari, Denyam Sarinyam, Nyam Sar, the Sarinyamri. They must say, Sador Datamia, Lapan and Tone, or the Kapa Tone, the Nigam, the Hill Shini Mari, Demba de Jamari. So Ranso, Tishi Ranso, they got it.
Okay. So this is a question about seeing your own face. I have always understood that phrase differently than the way Rinpoche talked about it yesterday. And so, for instance, sometimes I look at people, animals, all beings, and I see myself looking back at me through their eyes, as a person through people's eyes, as a cat through my cat's eyes, as an ant through an ant's eyes, and so on. And then there are other variations of this also listed in this question. I see my own form sometimes sitting opposite me, facing me when I'm in meditation, or when I'm asleep, I see the same. Or I look around at the world and I see Buddhas everywhere. And this is also like seeing my own face. Now Rinpoche's response is yes. When we look at the nature of mind, we give rise to various kinds of experiences. One of those is the experience of clarity. And what is being described here is a type of experience of clarity. So when we look at the natural state of the mind, if there is no fixation to that, then we will see the natural face of ourselves and of phenomena. And that type of perception will arise as a result of our meditation. Principally, meditative experiences are of three types: bliss, clarity, and emptiness. Whichever of these we give rise to, we must become free of fixation on them, not seeing them as real or inherently established. If we can abide in this kind of mindful awareness alone that is free from fixation, then we will not go astray in the view, even when various meditative experiences arise. And I know that your question was rather lengthy and I wasn't able to describe all of it to Rinpoche, but was it sufficiently addressed by him?
I understand what I'm seeing, I understand the events, I understand the situation, I was just curious what all.
And was that comment clearly received?
Sure.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm really having trouble reading the handwriting here. In letting go of thoughts and emotions as they arise, do we do that by immediately refocusing on the object of meditation, like the breath? Or whatever object one chooses to focus on. Okay, let's just start with that.
Sem hajang yeng no seni owa hong te gom ni long to sem ni se no sem yang hong yo ma le ta bo ba ra ta owa hong ja jang gom teni ni sem me yang ba cha so na teni owa hong mo gom ne teni ka le se lo la pa teni ke ko le te ka mi yeng dang ma yeng che par chi je te yeng di ri ba 오 당가 영통도 시지대 있거든요. 영통 방향의 제발 시지대.
Okay. Rinpoche's response to this question was in the context of the Om Ahom Vajra recitation, because he has not really addressed meditation with an object such as the breath during these teachings. Now, when we engage in the Vajra recitation of the syllables Om Ahom, the purpose is to merge or mix the mind with the wind energies. If we can do this in a non-distracted state, it eventually becomes stabilized. Occasionally we will be distracted by thoughts, and then of course we must return to the visualization and, well, we must return to the recitation. The important thing is that we're able to distinguish between the distracted state and the undistracted state. And that recognition, the knowing quality of the mind that sees the difference between the two, is what we're trying to cultivate in the practice. Let's see what I was thinking. And I really have to apologize. I simply cannot read the handwriting for the last question. If you want to clarify it, then please rewrite it.
Shall you shall
Yes.
rela and tela yang true yore right true me
Go.
take it turned out can't
This is how you learn how to sort of now. Share the Chipola Samotana, Tony Yore, Mangana Samotana, Tadi Yomari, share the Samotona, same with the long tongue dinner, one day shoot up to certainly shot the Shagong dinner, part not to Gisamano, church high over it. Not to Gisan Doctor, same part control, year Gisan Donna. Same young Masona, same the Shagong double it, on the shoot up here on the same. 혼대가 규탐이랑 그 세면 철샤용을 해야지. 아무 다시 셔들을 막도 세미행 정말 철샤지요 말아. 팔 요지 짓을 나오더라. 세마이는 셔공도 따버려 해야지. 세메롱 따버려 호대서 그 샤르지가 되는데 밤이와. 원고는 밤에는 철샤트들이. 근데 밤에 샤트 말이야.
Dear Rinpoche, will you explain the symbolism of the crystal ball and the dragons you have placed before you today? Okay, these are just outer objects. Rinpoche has said, I'll focus on the crystal ball and leave the dragons behind. The crystal ball is an example. It's like the natural state of the mind. When we are abiding in the natural state of the mind, all phenomena of samsara and nirvana clearly manifest from within mind's nature. They are held within the mind. When we become distracted, we follow after the thoughts and perceptions that arise, and thus they're not arising any longer from within. We've lost that vast view in which all of samsara and nirvana are complete, and we've become focused on one external event, and the mind has become distracted towards that. In the same way, then, we can look at the crystal ball, and it's a symbol of the natural state of the mind, in that everything that is appearing outside is clearly reflected and manifest inside the crystal ball. Let's see. Yeah, in this way, the mind's nature is like a mirror that is without fixation and clearly reflects whatever is placed before it.
share the tomani de pere. Then I said to me, Nicky, Tanke, Nina Chong there. Di Tonda, the share and dog dada or comes from simply Tamke, Bena, Hakore, Bena. The pere. She better it out. That's the truth for that. Comes from Sentin, same unit, the same unity they look here. Comes from Sentin of the Tuban chart or comes from Sentin Tamke, only share. Ben and this one, Saji don't need it. Tank something twin shop now. Comes from Manam, so same and the don't share. Don't need to think it gone. Comes from Sentin of the chap royal. The don't body the data, sing data, dog data.
I don't know. Okay, so now he decided to go after the dragons. So if this crystal ball is an example of the natural state of the mind, then we can see, that it clearly reflects all phenomena of the container and its contents. And then the dragons on either side of it symbolize the roar of the Buddha's teachings, or the sound that expresses that inner meaning. All sentient beings of the three spheres of existence are endowed with Buddha nature, and yet they need to hear the teachings that will cause them to recognize the nature of the mind, to understand and recognize the nature of the mind. And so it is said that if one meditates for just a single instant on the empty nature, then all of the beings of the three spheres of existence experience direct benefit in that instant. And so in this way, when, like the crystal ball, that is the nature of mind, or when we've habituated the nature of mind and phenomena clearly appear within that as in the crystal ball, then it is as though the spontaneous sound of that realization pervades the three spheres of existence and benefits all the beings therein. And so that sound would be equivalent to the dragon's roar.
Mubashi Namto Tata Tarin Hunnichik here, Tijan the Tingsum here, Tayang Janua, you know, Shedang Zikin, new but Tilum Museum, new what I'm here, to Shedang Chibu, Shedang Chibu Chiva Kaptatu Gomja. Oh, take a Shedang the Parish Shene, to send the Chesala, Song the Daniel, she just on it. Yishi Pate, Ranga Ye Dumani, Tangma, you be same Tangman, dear, Yida, you marry. Shedang the passion, the Tangma, you be same Tangma, dear arches are last one, dear Yishi.
Repeat how to transform negative emotion into primordial wisdom. He said it about 25 or 250. Oh, okay. Right, okay. Could he repeat it as has he said it over and over many times today? Okay. When we give rise to negative emotions and thoughts of any kind, if we're maintaining mindfulness, we recognize the negative emotion as it arises. For example, if I give rise to powerful anger, and in the moment of its arising, I recognize the anger. Through the power of that recognition, the anger itself dissipates. If I can have this experience one time, then I will know the mode of liberating any and all thoughts. So I give rise to anger. I look at the nature of the mind in that moment. The anger is pacified, and in this way, the negative emotion has been transformed into wisdom. When we speak of wisdom, we're talking about the primordial purity of mind. It has been with us since beginningless time. And so when a negative emotion is fully liberated, it is liberated into that primordial purity.
주 윤체 메바 영화 메바 사자 지문하나 내 탑송아 아주 때는 막없나 내바 강이요 말 딩앙니 마다 딩앙니 게 내바 로데요 지 반이 좀 남도 인다 전화 다 제름 거고 그래.
So how does visualizing deities and their attributes and so forth, how is that not conceptual and based on fixation? If you can always abide in the undistracted awareness that is Mahamudra, then within that you can visualize the deity or recite mantra, or simply not engage in those generation stage practices. If, on the other hand, you give rise to conceptual thoughts and you fall under their power, you become distracted by them, then it's necessary to apply the methods to transform those conceptual thoughts. And that's the basic benefit of engaging deity yoga. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question? Okay.
저 사이선 합시바데 강위에 삼나 지주 삼형제래 플라탐지를 삼형제 첨보요르면 무슨 샘동만이데 사가 샘당 가서 찍바래 샘윤 찍바래 얘네 가서는 형제요 막 다진요래 플라탐지 형제 첨보래 제가 사가 형제들 아주 제용을 저는 형제 첨보지와 대사가 선합래.
How are the effects or benefits of those deities not to be understood as self-existent? And the example is like when we wish to receive the blessing of the deity. So, yes, if we are talking about receiving the deity's blessing, we can say that this is from the perspective of a dualistic view that is focused on the deity as real. But in actuality, the blessing of the deity is nothing other than great love and compassion. So, let's see. In terms of the empty nature, my mind and the deity is the same. We have the same basis. The same foundation. Yet, because of the power of my self-clinging, I lack loving kindness and compassion. And so, if I'm thinking in these dualistic terms, I can say, I want to receive the deity's blessing, and this becomes the condition for me to give rise to authentic love and compassion in my own mind stream. But it should be understood as merely an expedient method.
혹은 갑물이나 원 적당 와하도이도 오그런 세대 공원이 되니지만 워 그런 감주가리나 와한 대단히 동거죠. 여들고 동이 대랑 와하는 저러라. 대주 롱들 샘이래데 샘대 옹왕데 뭐비 말아 롱도 샘인데로 요디 대래
네, 엄마 한 교지 대비 값서 동 싸네 마송나 주기를 돼.
딴 맞은 그래 당고 고백하고 저송 롱모도 뛰어와라 샘대 뛰어와라 내들더니 그런 게 다르다.
네, 쌤 딱가를 띄워라 네나 주기와 엄마 한 교지 대비 값서. 쌤 대 띄워라 딱가 네나 주기를 돼.
그래. 샘 영마 손에 오왕으로 미차지라. 대는 오왕으로 그 고바 맡고 봐 진짜 진실이 좀 봐라. 진실이 오왕으로 좀 봐라.
When I practice the Om Ahong practice, I find that I run out of breath after a few cycles. I breathe in and hold the breath for a couple of seconds and exhale, but holding the breath is difficult. You said to do the practice in a relaxed manner, but after just a few cycles, the relaxation is gone, and I have to take a breath. Okay. As I've mentioned many times, the purpose of the Om Ahong Vajra recitation is to merge the breath with the mind. That is its principal quality or attribute. It is fine not to hold the breath if that causes complications, because the important point is just to utilize this as a means to merge mind with winds. Likewise, if you simply focus without distraction on the mind abiding at the navel, that will accomplish the same purpose as the Vajra recitation. Likewise, if you simply cultivate mindful awareness without any object of meditation, that too will accomplish the purpose of merging the wind energies with the mind. And so the teaching on the Om Ahong, the Vajra recitation that Rinpoche gave yesterday, was merely one method among many. So when the experience of warmth appears at the navel, there's no need to focus on any other object of meditation. It is sufficient simply to allow it to abide there. If you are with, okay. Now I'm going to try to locate in the original Tibetan the verse that this one question is referring to. Okay, I've found, the question is this. In the text it says, if you are without acceptance and rejection of external appearances, all that appears and exists will be liberated as mudra. What is mudra? And this is one of those wonderful junctures at which not only are the verses different in the text, in the yellow text, and in the text that Rinpoche has been working from, but even the lines are different and their order is different. And so the line that you quoted there's only half of it here in the text, and the other half of it is somewhere else. So let me just ask Rinpoche what the term mudra means, and hopefully that will address your question.
Chagya sewa de kane Rinpoche.
Sa chipade de tata asa sa chipade tepa ka mangre. Ole. Rari todan jabe sa jo rang sem rabe tepa chipade. Chetta hi yan tere. Rang sem de lo chata wa thon o muni trani di peyong te ta rang sem de muni sangje re ti rang ra chi ke je re. Te chi na tri tela sa de ja de ne tri ja chi bo de sem di ne lo de 시선 생각 남과다고 차디요리 문이 자친 버래 생각은 맘총 느끼 담지 남과는 마송을 해 봤다고 랑 생각 내려오도 사지 생기니가 생각이나 총도 생도 탈래 살로라 감도 봐 이동나 살로라 감도 봐 남과 살로 서든 거도 말아 또 남과 살로라 로고는 도저히 말아 사도가 뺏기 버려야
The term mudra is a Sanskrit word which we translate into Tibetan as chagya. The first syllable then, cha, is the honorific term for hand. And it's also a term that's used for prostration. And thus the term points to the arising of faith, because when we give rise to faith in our minds, the natural response is to pay homage or to offer prostration. Now, when we see the nature of mind itself, when we directly realize or recognize the empty nature, on the basis of that, faith spontaneously arises, and we see, oh, my mind really is the mind of all of the Buddhas. So that is the ultimate arising of faith in the ultimate innate nature. Then the second syllable of the Tibetan word for mudra is gya, and it means vast. So when we recognize the natural state of the mind, we experience directly its vastness like the expanse of space. So within this natural state of the mind, all of the Buddhas and all sentient beings are encompassed. This mind that is broad like the sky is all-pervading. It isn't possible to go beyond that, to go outside of space. And so this is an example given in the Mahamudra and Dzogchen teachings of the vastness of the mind itself. And so this is kind of a long-winded explanation of the term mudra or chagya in Tibetan.
The Malari, but Lamjona Ransem Lamara Tope, Kusat, Sojari, Tere. So the Lamana, Yemi Shiva, Tere. Lamara Tope, Kusat, oh, Rangasem, the Lama by Shini, Rangasem, Rangasatalu, Rangasem, the Paki, Semir Bochilla Satalu, Songa.
So there's a line from the Guru Yoga of Milarepa that says, with devotion I prostrate to my own mind realized as the Guru. And this is pointing to the inseparability, or the recognition of the inseparability of my own mind and the Guru's mind. So within this context of Mahamudra, we prostrate to the precious natural mind itself that is no different from the mind of the Guru and of all of the Buddhas.
long simple was so not decided. And they, Nani, double the nature of it. Then they simple don't to heart, double cheese, simple cheese, nature of it. Don't to such a give you. Hong Kong can hit it, shoot up lot on the tabaret. The Jutang Chena, the Congo there, Jutang Chena, the Tango. 사지다고 심피나면 잡선 줘대. 근데 사지들 동보다고 gelok발을 잡선 줘대. 춘들와가 봐. 근데 야가다고 사자발을 잡선 줘. 롱거 봐. 근데 매도다고 뇽마발을 잡선 줘대. 근데 뇽마가 주대 빼나. 상합 침보 yap친 침보. 침보 침보. 단 지들 제게 요래니. 니네 데
양자 시고르베
시고 말이다. 니는 시에는 대체 로이들아. 양자 되고만 수용 보면 봐. 저 단데 고 이거는 또 사지다고 심지는 거 잡선 저거도 심지는 상제 좋은 거요래. 니 상제 좋은 거 농보다고 도마 춘들바니 되네. 농보다고 gelok발을 잡선 저거. 이 야가다고 사자발라 잡선 게 롱거 띠바 더버 띠바 gelok게 따는 진데래. 롱거 띠바 사자가 송데래. 이 냠리게 띠바 독신게 송데래. 이 제버데 가지바가 빼는 사자 치보래. 사조니가 치발이 와 메도던 제버다고 해. 이 대탐에서 왔다네. 이 강민 정도나.
림포체 로코르베 에네 데메나 다시 잡코르베 카레코
춘데만 로견이 돈다한테 고모지 되는 저기는 와. 아? 그걸 왜? 로걸 왜?
너는 야소리
저 도 됐다와 내는 내 잘만 돼. 다 사게 때문에 너무 찌요래. 사게 때문에 너무 따고 gelok 바래. 원래 야가다고 사자 바래. 메도다고 뇽마빠 이책 누구도 왔지. 양자 쭉 속다고 말했네. 레버다고 가지고 바래 잡선 줘지. 대에는 잡서 손 레버 강래 되나. 다 잡았다고 조건은 잡선 줘. 잡았다고 롱건은 잡선 줘. 근데 나빠다고 죽었는 잡선 줘. 사톡 생기 삼기 조건은 롱건 죽고 상계로 요래.
So Rinpoche has been asked to give transmission of both the Mahamudra Upadesha and also this refuge prayer that he composed last year. Now, with regard to the Mahamudra Upadesha, as Rinpoche said at the outset of this session, if there was time after the question and answer session, he would give that transmission. Otherwise, you should request it of Khenpo Rinpoche. So since the refuge prayer is quite brief, Rinpoche will have me read it in English. It is as follows. I take refuge in the Dharmakaya, which is like space. I take refuge in the Sambhogakaya, which is like the clouds. I take refuge in the Nirmanakaya, which is like rainfall. I take refuge in the Gelugpas who stand like a tree trunk. I take refuge in the Sakyapas who are like the branches. I take refuge in the Nyingmapas who are like the flowers. I take refuge in the Gagyupas who are like the fruit. I take refuge in the sentient beings. And all of its qualities, its fruits and flowers, branches, tree trunk and so forth, are the four different types of lineages within the Tibetan Vajrayana system. They all spring forth from the ground that is sentient beings. Furthermore, the qualities of the three kayas naturally manifest beyond that as space in the case of Dharmakaya, as clouds in the case of Sambhogakaya, and as rainfall in the case of Nirmanakaya. The transmission has already been given. So the important thing here is that the fruition is Buddhahood, and this prayer is pointing to not only the fruition but the ground from which that arises in stages. So with regard to the view of secret mantra, within that, all appearances manifest as the deity, all sound
땡생제 나가 찹 가려도 자세 라닝 제라래 저도 제는 되는 참만 되게 진짜 로뻔도 자세 라닝에 차례 맞게 되니 야보요리.
And so, even when I'm away, this text, the 37 Bodhisattva practices, is like my stand-in. It is as though I am always present. This text is like a spiritual master, and so I encourage you to always rely upon it.
Fold it and make a mandala.
So all of the Dharma centers are the same. I hold them all in high regard. And as I have offered my body, speech, and mind to all of you students, so too do I make offering back to the Sangha here.
Make it back to you.
Yeah, then we'll offer it to the center in Chino Pali. Yeah, so please excuse me, we've gone long over the time, and you can now kind of take a break and relax. And I will meet you again. And so it's my intention to return on a yearly basis to the States.
This concludes the Ganges Mahamudra Practice Instruction teaching with His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche.